Hey guys, and welcome to this new video. So this isn't the pickup video, but actually I wanted to share what my game of the year is so far. I think it's a little bit weird to announce the game of the year when the year hasn't even finished. But I guess, with the Game Awards just around the corner, it's kind of like, all right, this is what people kind of talk about right now. So why not share my game of the year? But before that, I thought that I'll share you guys a little bit about my gaming journey this year. And actually, I thought that I hadn't done too much gaming this year because honestly, I've been very busy with work. And also, just collecting games is also kind of a hobby in itself. So that itself takes away a lot of time from gaming. But then, additionally, there's just not that much time. I have two kids and a family. So the game does end up taking the backseat a little bit here and then. But as I was writing down all the games that I did play, I was actually quite surprised because I actually played quite a lot. I'm gonna go through my list of the games that I played. And actually, I played a bunch more, but there's quite a lot of games that I play like 5 minutes on Game Pass or 10 minutes or whatever. So I don't really count those. I'll only count those games that I actually put in a little bit of time to understand what they are. So, all right. So first up, we have It Takes Two. So this is actually a Swedish game published by EA, and it's a really fun co-op game. I think it actually won Game of the Year at the TGAs last year, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it was last year. But yeah, we're a little bit late on that one. I played it with my wife. She really loved it. I really liked it. I think she liked it more than I did. No, really nice game. Really interesting game mechanics. Pretty good graphics. Kind of has that Pixar feel to it. But if I had to choose, I would say that the previous game that they did, Way Out, was a lot more interesting to me. But I think that has more to do with that I kind of like games that are a little bit violent, a little bit more like, how do you say, like mature, guns and stuff like that. And I think, It Takes Two is a bit more like a Pixar. I mean, it's also for adults, but it's also for kids. So it's very, Pixar-y. But a very good game. Had a pretty good time, and it was fun to enjoy that game with my wife. All right, next up, Forza Horizon 5. So this is actually a series that I really used to love. In particular, I think the second one was probably the peak. But after it, I don't know, I still played 3 a lot, even though wasn't a big fan of the UK setting. And then the fourth one, I also played quite a bit, the one in Australia. And there, I really love the setting. And then with the fifth one, I kind of like it, but I think it has gotten a little bit stale. It's very similar to all the other games, and unfortunately, I think we're pretty spoiled. Like that game, it has everything. It has all the cars. It has beautiful graphics. Great controls, a lot of variety, and so on. But I know there's just something missing. There's something with the setting. It's just a little bit, like a little bit generic. So I don't know. I think this was probably the Forza Horizon game I spent the least time in. Even though I did spend a good 15 or 20 hours on it. All right, and after that, I played Monster Hunter Rise. So this is again, a game that came out on Game Pass, and I really enjoyed it. I think probably, so I've always wanted to get into the Monster Hunter games, and as you can see behind me there, I actually have the collector's edition for Monster Hunter World. But there's just something with those games. They're extremely unforgiving, and you kind of have to play them in co-op. But I think Monster Hunter Rise was the first game that was, pretty friendly. Even if you're solo, it was pretty streamlined, and it was very easy to get into. But I think at some point, it just got a little bit too repetitive. You kind of had that live service-y type of feel, where you just kind of ended up grinding and doing the same thing over and over. And I don't know, I just kind of lost the interest somewhere. So it's a very nice game. Actually, I really loved it, but it just felt like it was just getting too samey. I was spending too much time doing the same thing, so I kind of lost interest and moved on. Next up, another game that used to be on Game Pass, and actually I played it because I saw it was going to get removed. So I was I gotta play it now, otherwise I'll miss it. And this game is Telling Lies, and this is kind of like an FMV adventure game where I think you followed. It's been a while since I played it. It was I think it was in February or March last year, this year. And you follow some kind of like undercover agent as he tries to infiltrate some kind of like environmental group, and and then there's some intrigue, and you're like, you're looking at all these tapes afterwards, and you need to figure out like what happened here, like how did this thing go so wrong, and so it's like an investigation type of game. Not amazing, but I was pretty entertained by it, and it was pretty fun. So I think if FMV games is your thing, I think this is probably one of the better recent FMV games that I've played. Not that I've played a lot, but no, it was pretty good. All right, next up we have Deliver Us Mars. So this was a game that I actually bought full price when it got launched, and I was super hyped about it because I was really big fan of their previous game, Deliver Us the Moon, which is like an indie game where you're like flying to the moon, and you actually get to sit in the rocket and press all the buttons, and it's pretty detailed in an arcadey way. And then you kind of like, I was very surprised by that game. Like, it just felt like it was always throwing in new unique elements, and as you were playing, you didn't know what to expect, and it was really impressive for being an indie game. So I had very, very high hopes for this new one, Deliver Us Mars, and unfortunately, I don't know, it just didn't live up to my expectations. It just felt a bit rushed and a bit buggy and a bit glitchy, and I wouldn't say it's a bad game, but I think I expected a lot more from this game, to be honest. And I felt like they were trying to like punch above their weight a little bit. Like, they were like, in some parts they were like, let's do it like a bit like Uncharted, where you're jumping and doing some platforming, and it was just kind of like glitchy and buggy with animations. And yeah, it wasn't a lot of fun. I don't regret playing it. It was still a good experience, but yeah, I wish that game was so much more. All right, next up we have Dead or Alive 4. So actually, Dead or Alive, it's a series that I played for many years in the past, but only like kind of casually. Like, my cousin, I know, he was a really big fan of those games, and but I never really understood the counter system. So this year I was like, okay, you know what? I hear people talk about Dead or Alive. It's a bit unique compared to Mortal Kombat and Soul Calibur and Tekken and Street Fighter, because it has this parry system. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna play this game. I'm gonna learn the parry system, and I'm gonna have a lot of fun. And I did kind of learn it, and I think it's a very interesting game. And kind of what I realized as well is it's a very responsive game. I think for its time, it really rivals the other games for that time, like Tekken and so on. But I don't know, for some reason it just kind of like took the back seat from compared to all the other fighting games. So it became kind of like a little bit hidden, but definitely a very quality game. That kind of just lives in the shadow of the big ones, right? But definitely a very competent game and very fun. And I think I played through single player mode with one character, and no, it's a pretty fun fighting game. I really enjoyed it. All right, next up we have a Castlevania Lord of Shadows. So this is a game I actually started a long time ago, and then kind of forgot about it, and then I picked it up this year again. I was like, all right, now I'm gonna beat it. And this is kind of Castlevania meets God of War. Very similar in how it's set up with the levels and the bosses and so on. And I think it's pretty fun. It's a little bit like a little bit clunky, and sometimes kind of a little bit hard to understand what the game wants you to do, because you need to be standing in a very specific position, or to move, to like, they have these small mini puzzles that you need to do, and sometimes it's just like the game is not very good at at the like when it comes to how you connect your characters to the puzzles. Like, it just feels like you need to stand in a specific way, and so it's a bit janky, but it's overall though it's a pretty good game. I'd say the graphics are great for being a 360 game. The atmosphere is really good. The story is so it's pretty interesting. By all means, it's not like an amazing game, I think, but honestly, I think it's pretty underrated. I think it's pretty good. It has some things that are annoying, like, for example, there's this, like, between the levels, there is this like narrator. Actually, it's Patrick Stewart, and that one is just so unfitting. It's just really weird. But the actual in-game cutscenes that happen in the levels are really cool. But yeah, I know I'm nitpicking on a small detail, but I think when you have a story-driven game, that is very important, and I think that part of the game was pretty poorly written, so it actually dragged it down a bit. But it's a good game. All right, next up, Far Changing Tides. So this is an indie game, and actually it's a sequel of a game that I haven't played. But it's basically like you're this guy in a future world where the world has gone to shit, and there's like flooding everywhere, and you have these like machines from the old world that you need to fix, and then kind of like go out in the world and go to the next place. And this is a side-scrolling game. It's a 2.5D game, so it's 3D, but it's like in 2D. It's from a 2D perspective, and basically it's always like you're always going from left to right, and you need to solve something and fix it, and then you have like a boat, and then it becomes a submarine, and then you find a train, and so on and so on. And it's a really fun game. It's really like physical and fun, and has a lot of details. If I should complain on anything, it's that I think the ending is a little bit like I mean, it's fine, but I feel like it would have been. I wish it was more fulfilling. But it's a very good game. I really enjoyed it. I think it's a fantastic game. I think anybody could play it and have a good time with that one. All right, next up we have a Chorus. So Chorus is a German game where it's kind of like a space action game, which has like story elements. You fly around, talking to people, getting quests, and then you do like this action type of mission where you fly around and there's like a lot of enemies attacking you and boss fights and so on. So it's kind of like an old school type of game, kind of like a little bit like, I guess, Descent, but in third person. And I think it's a little bit underrated. I wouldn't say it's an amazing game, but it's definitely fun little playthrough that you can do. I think it's something like 15 or 20 hours long. The story in it is it's pretty interesting as well. But yeah, I mean, this is like I would say like German, like a B movie type of style, type of game. Almost feels like it's a game from Lost on the Dreamcast that someone decided, oh, let's make this into a game today. So it has that kind of like a Dreamcast era type of story, Starlancer type of feeling. But not bad. If you're into like space shooter games, I think you will have a bit of fun with this one. Next up, Redfall. So Redfall, I only played it for, I have to admit, for a few hours. And actually, like, I have a pretty like high threshold for like games that aren't that great but are first-person shooters. And honestly, I think Redfall was like pretty okay-ish, but at some point I just really felt like it was just repeating like very similar missions, and there wasn't like an interesting story, and the world in itself wasn't that interesting either. So just kind of, I don't know, I think I played for 3 or 4 hours, and I just kind of never looked back, unfortunately. All right, next up, Arcade Paradise. So this is a game that sounded really interesting, and it has like this crazy storyline. It's like you're this young guy who has a dad, and your dad is like, hey, you have to do better or something like that, and from now on you have to take care of my washing machine like store. And like in America, you don't have your own washing machines. You have to take it to a store and then pay money and wash your clothes. So you take that over, like a place like that, like a laundromat, I think it's called. We don't have those over here in Sweden. I've never seen them, but yeah, apparently it's a big in the US. And you take that over, and then as you clean it up and you get it up, set up again, and so on. You go into the back office, and then you find a bunch of arcade machines, and then you go on your like modem on your 56. So it takes place in like the 90s, like early 90s, and then you communicate with, I think it's your brother or sister, and you're like, hey, what are these arcade machines here? And she's like, yeah, I thought it was a good idea. And then he just like looks at how much money there is in arcade machines, and there's like quite a bit. So he starts to think like, maybe I should like convert this laundromat into an arcade hall. So that's the premises of the game. So you're like, keeping it up with doing a laundromat and running an arcade machine place at the same time. So I think the concept of the game is great, but I think the execution kind of like falls a little bit because it's very repetitive. It's basically like, like timer games. You know what I mean? Like those mobile games where you do something and then you have to wait until you get your energy back, and then you do something else in the meanwhile, and then you can kind of juggle it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So it's that style of game. So it's yeah, great idea, but I think the execution just kind of fell on the repetitive of the game loop, which unfortunately was kind of boring. Okay, next up, MechPixel 3. So this is a really weird game where it's like there's a bunch of scenes and something crazy happens, and the outcome can be like many very different ways, and you just figure out how to kind of like survive, or how the game wants you to accomplish the goal. And it's like a bunch of scenes, and it just gets crazier and crazier. And it's kind of like it's a bit repetitive because you have to do it over and over again, but the scenes are quite short. But I think like at some point the scenes just get so confusing, and it's like kind of like a bit abstract what they want you to do, so it gets a little bit frustrating. Yeah, so actually no, I didn't finish it, but I kind of like what I saw, and I think it was a really like fun idea, cool game. All right, next up we have a game called Dorgogne. So Dorgogne is kind of like a French adventure game. As a startup, I felt like, what is this? Some kind of like pretentious French adventure game. Like this seems to suck. But then I actually played through the intro, and then I was kind of hooked. Actually, it's kind of like a sweet little story about like this kid who used to live with or visited their grandma on the summer for like 3 months or whatever, and then there's like this backstory with her family where the dad doesn't like the grandmother, and now she has like died in the future, and then you like relive your memories of your childhood and what happened during that summer. So I haven't finished it. I played it a bit, but no, I do intend to get back to it and finish it. But I don't know why I stopped. There's just too many other games coming in the way all the time. But no, really nice graphics, nice little indie game. Definitely can recommend. Really well-made game. All right, next up, Inertial Drift. So honestly, I'm a sucker for arcade-style racing games, especially if they're a little bit unique. And this one is definitely unique. It has a really like special drifting going on where you control it with both sticks. But I don't know, it's just something with the story that just made me like, this is like really boring. Like it's so boringly written. So I just lost interest while playing it. And also like the way that the tracks are structured and how you unlock the cars or whatever. It just like, it was just so dull. So I don't know, I just dropped it. Really big shame, because I think there is something there that is great, but I feel like the wrapping, like the story and all that stuff is just not, maybe it's just me, maybe it's just, the style is not for me, but I just felt it was very like, not very well written, to be honest. All right, next up. All right, so this is Sega Bass Fishing. So this is a real oldie that I actually, I think I played like very briefly on Dreamcast, but I decided to play this one from start to finish, and it's a really short game. You can finish it in 30 minutes or 40 minutes, but really fun arcade game, arcade fishing, really fast. You go in there, catch the fish, get them out, and there's different levels, and there's like even like a last like horror level where you catch the horror fish, not the horror fish, but it's like the boss fish. So I don't know, like this, Sega just has this feeling where it just make like it's really like, it's like an fishing. It should be like like a relaxing thing. You just sit there and you fish and you wait, But Sega is like, they do it like, yeah, fishing, the bass is coming, get it quick, and it's really fun, really fun. I can highly recommend it if you're a Sega fan. All right, next up we have Serious Sam, Siberian Mayhem. So this is the expansion for Serious Sam 4, I think. Yeah, it must be 4. And yeah, I think this is more of the same, but with the different kind of levels, and I think there's some new weapons. And honestly, I felt like the design in this one was maybe a little bit better. It had like a bit more variety. It had like a little bit more interesting levels, and there wasn't as much repetition as the last game. But I do think it was a little bit on the short side of things. Overall, I think it's okay. It's an okay playthrough. If you like Serious Sam, I can recommend it. If you don't like Serious Sam, you can probably skip it. All right. So next up is a game that I thought that I would never ever play, because like the way that it's set up and the graphics and the mechanics and so on, it just feels like nothing that I would ever enjoy. But I gave it a chance, and oh my god, I really love this game. So it's Rune Factory 4 Special, which is kind of like Harvest Moon, but a bit more combat and story based. And I really enjoyed this game. Like, I felt like it had a lot of different game mechanics. It has the harvesting aspect, it has the combat aspect, it has the story, it has the exploration, it has like, finding the right items, combining them, crafting, and there's just so many different game mechanics that all come together to create the game. And I felt like it was very nicely balanced and had like a good pacing as well. So no, really good game. Really fun. I think if you look at the graphics, it looks kind of like a web browser game or like a Flash game, something like that. Maybe like Nintendo DS, like not high-end Nintendo DS game, but or Nintendo 3DS maybe, actually, because the game isn't 3D. But great game. I really love this game. And yeah, I actually even bought Rune Factory Oceans just to play more. So haven't started that one yet, but hope to start that soon. But yeah, this game definitely made me a fan of Rune Factory. All right, so next up, Everspace 2. So this is again a space shooter game, and it's a bit like I would say it's a little bit like Starfield, but with only the space flying part. And you can kind of like customize your ship, and you do some trading, and there's story mode, and there's a lot to explore and jump between different galaxies. It's a bit arcadey, but it has a lot of like different stuff. And I don't know, like this game, it should definitely be up my alley. And I don't know if it's because maybe I was not in the right mood, but I really felt this game was really boring. And it has gotten pretty good reviews from other people, especially players. Like, players are like, "Oh, this game is really fun," but I don't know. I just couldn't get into it. It happens. But yeah, I don't know. All right, next up, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So this is a live service game that I tried out. And actually, I had a bit of fun with it, running around, sawing down people, and also being the victim, and hiding and getting away from the bad guys. And it's pretty fun, but I think like it's a little bit lacking on the content side, and there's also like a little bit lacking when it comes to the presentation. Like, I kind of wish there was a little bit more story, like maybe some kind of like progression of what happens in the house and why you're trying to escape and so on. But no, I think it's a pretty fun game. But yeah, I have to say, like, I played it a few times, and I'll probably just never go back to it, to be honest. Next up, another live service game. So this is Exoprimal. So actually, this is a game I will be going back to at some point. And yeah, this is Capcom's dinosaur shooter co-op game, PvE, PvP game. And I really, I was surprised, because these type of games, like, sometimes, like, I don't know, they just feel like a bit like they're missing something. But this one, I really enjoyed it quite a bit. And honestly, I was surprised to see that the game is not more successful than it is, because actually it has a really cool story that, between each mission, they give you like new cutscenes and you like memories of what happened and so on. And I really I really enjoyed it. I played it quite a bit actually. I think I'm like halfway through, and I think I stopped playing because there was like some other game that came, and I wanted to play that instead. But definitely look forward to getting back to Axa Primal sometime in the future. All right, and then we have Sea of Stars. So this is again a game I didn't finish. I think like it seemed, I really enjoyed what I saw, like a Super Nintendo style JRPG. I would say it's almost like, imagine what if Neo Geo had Super Nintendo style RPGs. I think that's what Sea of Stars probably would have been. But yeah, really a nice Super Nintendo style JRPG, of course, with slightly better graphics than what Super Nintendo is capable of doing. But from what I played so far, was really good. Have to get back to it at some point. All right, next up, Weird West. So this is a game that I felt like when it started, I felt like it was really cool. It's kind of like a mix between like a twin stick shooter and kind of like almost like a Fallout style story-driven RPG. But I think there's just something with that game where, like in the cutscenes, it's just like, I don't know, it's just I don't know, just I feel like there needs to be a bit more immersion and atmosphere, and I feel like that game, like it has some good parts, but it's just not hitting on all those. It's just not ticking off all those check marks for me to really enjoy it. So unfortunately, I had to uninstall it after a bit of playtime. But no, I think the game has a good base, but I kind of just wish it had a little bit more when it comes to the story and so on. All right, next up we have Starfield. So this is a game that I actually spent quite a lot of time in. I pretty much did all of the side quests that were like major side quests, and of course also the main story. And I did, I tried at least everything, like some base building, I did some crafting, I did some collecting, I did some scavenging, I did some, like bounty hunting, and there's so many things you can do in this game. And I think the game is pretty good, but I feel like it definitely shows a bit of age when it comes to how it's designed and how it's made. I would say in particular how the story kind of like is presented to you, because I think like we've gotten kind of spoiled by games like The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk and Metal Gear Solid 5, and like there's just like I feel like Starfield is a little bit like the story of Oblivion and Skyrim, which isn't bad, but it's kind of like it's missing some of the emotional aspect. I felt like when I was playing Starfield, I didn't really connect emotionally with any of the characters, and to me, I feel like that's really important. But I did still have a lot of fun with the game, like very interesting mechanics. Having all of these different things thrown together is quite unique. And also, I think the combat in this game, especially like when it came to reactions and how the AI like reacted when they get shot, and they could like blow up with their jetpack and stuff like that. I thought that was really cool. But yeah, no, I think it was a good game. But I do wish that I would have had a little bit of a better story that would have made me a bit more emotional to the whole game. All right, next up, the Talos Principle 2. So I made a review of this game actually on my YouTube channel, and I did really enjoy it, but it's a puzzle game, and honestly, I'm not a big puzzle fan, because honestly, it reminds me a bit of work, because like when I'm working, it's like a big puzzle, and you have to really think about it. Like, is this the right path? Is this what we should do? I work with strategy and PR and stuff like that, and like I'm always like thinking about like, should I do it like this? What options do we have? How do we, blah 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 blah, and and I feel like that part of my brain that is like busy when I'm working. That same part of my brain is busy when I'm playing Talos the Principle too, and while I do enjoy it. It just reminds me of work. So I think that's why I kind of dropped it. I haven't finished it. I do wish to come back to it because from what I saw and what I played, I did actually enjoy it. But I think it's probably a game that you should play when you're on vacation and you need your brain to have a bit more activity than relaxing. And then I think it's probably a good game to bring out and play. All right, and then let's move on to some. So all the games that I mentioned now, they were all on Xbox. Most of them I played on Game Pass, but I did also buy some of them. But now moving on to PS5. And actually, I think there's only one game that I did play on the PS5. And it is Zanki Zero, which is actually a PS4 game, but I'm playing it on PS5 through backwards compatibility. And it's kind of like it's a very weird game. It's a dungeon crawler in first person, and also like mixed with like a visual novel type of game. And it's really weird. You're like these guys that have died and the world has gone under, and you've been like cloned, and you have to like figure out what went wrong in your life and then share that with the people in your group. And then there's a lot of intrigue and stuff like that. So haven't gotten that far yet, but so far from what I've seen, I do enjoy it because it is a bit weird, but it is also a little bit repetitive. And the visual novel part, it almost like interrupts the game over and over again. I do enjoy strong stories and just stuff like that, but I feel like this game, it has a little bit too much of like filler dialogue, which is a little bit annoying. But I will definitely finish this one. So yeah, hoping I'll be able to finish this one when I have a bit more time. And then moving on, let's talk a bit about games that I played on emulators. So I actually played quite a bit of classic games on emulators that I bought. And yeah, I played a lot, but I played a lot like very short. But the ones that I'll mention is the ones that I actually spent quite a bit of time on. So first of all, it's Felony, I forgot the number, Felony 19 something something, also known as the Runabout in Japan. So this is kind of like, it's a pretty arcadey style game with very impressive graphics for its time. And you select a car and you go around, and there's like a mission, like a story-based mission, and you need to go from point A to point B, and then stuff happens. And there's tons of destruction, there's like physics, and the graphics are really good for being a PS1 game. Yeah, I actually made a review of that one on my channel, so do check it out if you're interested. But yeah, that was a really fun game to play, actually, that I have never played before. And then next up, I played a game from Capcom called Without Warning, which is kind of like, it was actually developed by some people from the Tomb Raider team that left the Tomb Raider team to start their own company. And it's a bit like, remember the TV show 24 with Kiefer Sutherland? It's almost like a very B version of that. And I mean, there's not a lot of story, but it's like you see like a crime from different perspectives, and then you play like as a security guard, you play as like a soldier, you play as a something else, whatever. And honestly, this game is incredibly poor, really poorly made, very low budget. I really wanted to finish it, but I think I came like halfway and just like, yeah, I'm never gonna play this game ever again. And then I also played actually all of the Armored Core games from the PlayStation 1 all the way to the end of the PlayStation 2. And I actually had never played these games before, so this was the first time. And I played all of them except for the arena shooter one, because the arena shooter one just seemed like, like a multiplayer type of game with some small arenas thrown in for good measure. So I didn't really count that one, but all the others I played. And I have to say, I think they're pretty interesting, but at the same time, I feel like they're a little bit lackluster in the story. Like the story is like, it's fun. Like it's kind of like, hey, there's a mission, you have to do it, and then there's some intrigue. But I feel like the characters is missing. There's no like emotional twist to it. It's just kind of like a cold, mercenary type of story, which I think is intentional, because it's very much like syndicates and. Like you just do it for the money and stuff like that. But like, I don't know. I just wish there was a little bit more. But it's a cool game. It's a cool game, but it is a bit hard and it's a bit clunky, and it's a it's a fun game. I can say, check it out if you're interested. But just don't expect like this super smooth AAA type of game with great controls and well thought, difficulty curves, because the difficulty curve in this game is like, all right. All right, next up, Tokyo Extreme Racer. So this is a racing game that actually I played this one way back, and I'm just reminded of it. And the thing is, like, it's such a cool game, but at the same time, it's like you need to spend so much time to get into it that it's like I mean, it has so much stuff that it wants you to do. And the thing is, it's very grindy and it's a bit unfair with the AI. So I'm a little bit mixed about it. Personally, I really love it because of how it's made and how it's set up. But I think I'm a bit biased because honestly, there are a lot of things that are annoying. But anyway, it's a street racing game. Like you're in Tokyo's highways and you flash your lights on rival cars and then you race. And that's about it. But it has tons of secrets and lots of unlocks and lots of like crazy stuff. It's like the Pokemon of racing cars, almost. All right, and then I played Sylphid Lost Planet. So this is a treasure game, and Treasure, of course, legendary developer that has done a lot of shooters on Sega Mega Drive and so on. And I think this game was probably like their try at making a shoot 'em up that felt very big budget. So it had like a lot of cutscenes, a lot of story, and things like that. And I don't know, I feel like this game, it's okay, but graphically, like it feels like, I don't know, it's really not that super impressive. It's a nice looking game, but honestly, I expected a bit more. And also the story, it's fun, but it's kind of like, it's nothing special. So definitely not one of the strong games from Treasure, even though it is decent. And then I played a RoboCop. So I was reading about the new RoboCop game. So I was like, maybe there's an old RoboCop game. And there is. So there's a one on PS2. And oh boy, this game is so boring. Wow, it's really snooze material. Really low budget type of game. The levels, same over and over again. You go around just shooting the bad guys. And it's less super repetitive. And it has like a really stale, like gun feeling. So I can't recommend that one. All right, and next up we have Endgame. So Endgame is kind of like Time Crisis clone, and I play this with the gamepad and not the light gun game. And unfortunately, the way that the game is tweaked is that I think that probably no one ever tried to see if it's possible to beat this game with only a gamepad, because the timings are just so off, and it seems totally designed for the light gun and not for the gamepad. So after like the third level, it gets like practically impossible. But I did put in some cheat codes in it, just to see it until the end, and it's an okay game. I think that they really copied Time Crisis, especially when it comes to the camera movements and how the enemies react and so on. But and they have like this kind of like funny little story where it's like you're like I think you're an agent or some kind of girl or whatever, and there's like these people after you, and then you go on this like adventure all across the globe in different countries, and it's totally wacky, but it's kind of fun. It's not a great game, but it's all right. Right, and then we have Submarine Commander. So Submarine Commander is a really weird game, and it's actually the concept is designed, the whole like idea behind the game is by the same guy who came up with Strider for Capcom way back. And actually that's the reason why I got that game, because I was just reading up on this person and I was like, I gotta check out more games from this designer. And this was one of the ideas that he had. And it's kind of like a little bit like a visual novel, but then also at the same time a bit like Armored Core type of game, but you're with the submarine. It's pretty basic. The graphics are very simple, but I think the game has a good heart and it has some interesting ideas. but unfortunately the execution is just very flawed. I would say that, you know, if you're a real like Japanese video game connoisseur, definitely give it a try. You can find it for like $20 fairly easily on eBay. Was released in Europe and PAL with a very bad translation, but no, I mean, it's not a great game, but I did have a lot of fun with it. So yeah, Japanese video game connoisseurs, I think you can play this game. I think you might enjoy it. All right, and then on the PS1, again, you know, I played Ridge Racer, the very first Ridge Racer, just to see how it holds up, and actually it does kind of hold up decently. You know, of course, this is a very small, small as in it doesn't have a lot of content. It's like 3 tracks and a couple of cars, and it's pretty basic, but I think it's a pretty fun game. I think at this point in time, this Ridge Racer game, it hadn't really fully found its drifting yet. So it's like it's on, you know, it's kind of like getting there, but it's not there yet. But though it's a fun game, I would say. You know, it's fun for like 10 minutes or something like that. But you know, it's just interesting to go back and play these really old games just to see how they were, because obviously they are very influential, and you know, you look back and it's like, wow, you know, this game spawned all the other games like Gran Turismo and so on. But no, it's a very basic game, but it's you know, it's fun. All right, next, so this is a game that I also did a review on my channel, and it's Hunting Ground. So Hunting Ground is a horror game by Capcom, which apparently was like a Clockwork game from the beginning, but then later on they changed it into another type of game with a dog. And it's a very interesting game. It's a bit weird, but I gotta say, like, the graphics are really good for a PS2 game. And actually, I really enjoy this game. You know, it's not like a shooting game. It's more like you have to hide from the bad guy. And no, it's a bit like you know, it's a bit like, oh, it has a lot of twists and turns, and you know, like, you know, who you think the bad guy might be isn't really the bad guy, and there's a reason why they like that, and so that's kind of like the game's shtick, I would say. Pretty fun, pretty good. Has that real Capcom feel. A little bit janky in some aspects, but I think if you enjoy old school Resident Evil games, definitely check out Hunting Grounds. Although it has gotten a bit pricey, but you know, you can usually find it for something like $80 or $90. All right, almost at the end here. So another retro game that I played is Legend of Legaia. So this was a game that I've heard a lot of people talk about, and you know, when we're talking about old school classics, a lot of JRPG fans, oh, Legend of Legaia, that was like the most amazing JRPG game and a sleeper hit, and nobody heard about it. So I was like, all right, I gotta check it out. And I played it, and it was really, really grindy. So I actually had to add some Game Genie codes just to be able to level faster. But then unfortunately my game glitched and I couldn't continue. So I got stuck like halfway through. But from what I could see, I think it's a bit of a game of its time. It's pretty fun, but if you don't have the codes, the Game Genie codes, it's very like hard and unforgiving. And also, like, the combat system is a bit different from other JRPGs, because in this game you actually have to input like commands, kind of like Street Fighter, and then your character will do that move. So you have to remember the moves, and you have to time it right, and so on. So there's a lot of stuff like that. But it's a fun game, you know. The graphics are nice, kind of like nicely made, but I think you know, I think it's not a must play, to be honest. Sorry, guys. All right, and then another series that I heard a lot about, and you know, all these JRPG fans from back from the PS2 days, they're all like, you know, Shadow Hearts. This is a game you absolutely have to play. So I played it for Shadow Hearts just to see how it is, and actually I quite enjoyed it. I think the story is interesting. It has like a lot of different kinds of elements that you don't see in JRPGs. So for example, it takes place like, I think it takes place like a few years before World War One. So it's like an alternative universe where they've mishmatched a bunch of styles, and it's like kind of futuristic, but at the same time kind of like pre-World War One-ish. And then it's about soldiers and stuff like that. And then they throw in the occult as well. So there's like cannibals and ghosts and a lot of weird stuff. Kind of a weird game. And the dialogue is really weird as well, but it actually adds to the entertainment of the game. And again, a bit of a product of its time. But I think like this is actually a game that is worth playing because it's just so different in how the setting is portrayed, and the characters and the occult and so on. So I think if you're into JRPGs and you want something very different from the regular JRPGs, I think this is a good game to check out, because I think the storyline and the characters is pretty unique in this game. Okay, so there's only one game left now on this list, and this is my game of the year. And you're probably thinking, what game is this? So is it Baldur's Gate 3? Nope. I haven't played that one yet. I hope to play it at some point, but we'll see. Is it the latest Yakuza, Man with No Name? Nope, haven't played that yet either. I'm probably waiting until Christmas to play that while I have some time where I can play it in peace and don't have to think about like going to bed early to work or whatever, right? So I'm waiting for that one as well. But no, so my game of the year this year is Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, in my opinion, is a real masterpiece. I think it's better than the first game, but the first game is also truly amazing. But I think what they've done with the second game is just like, they've taken everything that is good, kind of like compressed it, and then just went wild with all the other stuff, like with the physics, the puzzling. And I don't even like puzzles, but in this game, I think what they've really succeeded with is making failing fun. There's a lot of like contractions you can come up with, and it's very easy to use and very intuitive, and it's really, really fun. And then I think another very important aspect is that when it comes to the story, I felt like the first game, it was a little bit weak in the story part, and which is fine because Zelda games are usually like a bit abstract. But I feel like the second game actually went into more of a cinematic style of storytelling, and has actually quite a lot of cutscenes. So that was a bit of a surprise to me, and I think like the cutscenes in this one was really, really good, and the voice acting was really good and was really dramatic, and some of the enemies looked really scary, like in the cutscenes. I was like, whoa, like I didn't know Nintendo could do such scary shit. But no, I think absolutely brilliant game. Have the collector's edition, really good. Can definitely recommend it. And I do know that it is splitting some of the player base in two, or some people they say it's okay, but it's not my favorite. But for me personally, I do enjoy when you take something and you turn it into something completely different, and you actually succeed at it, right? So I think like the team, they took a lot of risks with that Zelda game, and for me, I felt like it gave me a new kind of experience, and there was very like new and fresh perspectives to explore. So I had a lot of fun with that game. Anyway, kind of losing my voice here. This video ended up being longer than I thought. But yeah, that was my list. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if you have any comments. And yeah, wishing you a good gaming year next year. And hopefully you can play as many games that apparently I did. Which is weird because I didn't think that I had time to play that many games. But apparently I do. Or maybe I just spend my time doing that. I don't know. Anyway, all right. See you guys. Bye-bye.